Kaskazini, Mheshimiwa Sara Korere kuuliza swali namba 87 ya 2025.
Shukrani Mheshimiwa Spika. Nauliza swali 87 mwaka 2025 kwa waziri. Je, waziri anaweza toa ripoti kuhusu idadi ya raia wa Kenya waliosajiliwa na wasiosajiliwa wanaoishi na kufanya kazi katika Jamhuri ya Muungano ya Tanzania kufikia tarehe 29 Oktoba mwaka 2025. Pili, kubainisha iwapo kuliripotiwa vifo vyovyote vya raia wa Kenya katika Jamhuri ya Muungano ya Tanzania kipindi cha uchaguzi uliofanyika tarehe 29 Oktoba mwaka 2025 na baadaye, na ikiwemo idadi ya vifo pamoja na hatua zilizochukuliwa kurudisha marehemu kwa jamii zao nchini Kenya. Tatu, kutaja ni biashara ngapi za Wakenya zimeathiriwa na ghasia za kipindi cha uchaguzi katika Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania. Na mwisho, kueleza hatua ambazo Wizara ya Masuala ya Nje na Ughaibuni imechukua ikishirikiana na serikali ya Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania kutambua walipo wa Kenya walioripotiwa kutoweka baada ya uchaguzi.
Sarah, although your question is in Kiswahili, the response I've received is in English, and the Prime Cabinet Secretary will answer you in English. Is that all right?
Mheshimiwa Spika, ni sawa, hata Kimombo na kielewa sawa sawa.
Whoever is saying no, read your constitution. There are two official languages, English or Swahili, or the third one, the Braille. Yes, the sign language. Go ahead, Prime Cabinet.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, let me acknowledge this communication from you, Mr. Speaker, regarding the failure of several cabinet ministers to respond appropriately to the calls of the House. I will take it up, and I'm sure when we meet next, there'll be a record of better response. So may I take this opportunity to apologize on their behalf, and at the same time to say that I'll take up the necessary action. Now, if I go straight to the question raised by the Honorable Member Sara Korere, I wish to respond as follows. On the first aspect, that is on the registration and presence of Kenyan citizens residing, working, studying, or operating businesses in the United Republic of Tanzania, as at 29th of October 2025, my response is as follows. I wish to state the following based on the records maintained by the Kenya High Commission in Dar es Salaam and the Kenya Consulate in Arusha, and official statistics provided by the government of Tanzania. Data from the Kenya High Commission and the Consulate. Between 2021 and October 2025, a total of 766 Kenyan citizens physically registered with the Kenya High Commission in Dar es Salaam and in the Kenya Consulate in Arusha. In addition, the Mission online registration portal, which was very active between 2021 and June 2023, has so far recorded 276,186 Kenyan entries into Tanzania, covering both short-term and long-term stays. Statistics from the United Republic of Tanzania from July 2023 to June 2024 are as follows. During the reporting period, the government of Tanzania issued to Kenyan nationals the following: 448 students gratis passes, 879 work permits, 370 registered business entities owned by Kenyans, 1,806 residence permits for workers and self-employed Kenyans. This amounts to a total of 3,503 documented Kenyan citizens residing or conducting socioeconomic activities in Tanzania during the period under review. That is from the Tanzanian records. I wish to note that the observations here is that the high number of work and residence permits issued indicates growing labor mobility and expanding economic engagement by Kenyan citizens within Tanzania, presumably being driven by the free movement of people and capital in the East African community. This data shows a steady increase in cross-border economic integration consistent with the objectives and spirit of the EAC. The second aspect of her question is to do with the debts. Mr. Speaker, I wish to respond as follows. On the reported deaths of Kenyan nationals during or after the elections of 29th October 2025 and the repatriation measures taken. To date, and based on the information received from the Kenya missions in Arusha and Dar es Salaam, there has been one confirmed death of a Kenyan national linked to the unrest surrounding the 29th October 2025. The deceased, Mr. John Ogutu, a Kenyan teacher at Sky Schools in Kinondoni district, was shot dead on 29th October 2025 at approximately 7 p.m. in Goba Center, Obungo district area, Dar es Salaam. Mr. Speaker, I wish to point out that in response, the Kenya High Commission, with the support from Sky Schools, conducted visits to government hospital mortuaries in Dar es Salaam to trace and identify the remains of Mr. Ogutu. However, these efforts have so far been unsuccessful. The Kenya High Commission formally notified Tanzanian authorities through diplomatic channels and requested their assistance in locating the body. I personally wrote to the Minister for Foreign and East African Community Affairs of Tanzania to seek his urgent intervention. The Kenya High Commission remains in constant engagement with Tanzanian authorities. However, the body of the late Mr. Ogutu is yet to be traced, and we are following up accordingly. And once the body or the remains are found, the embassy shall facilitate the repatriation. The third aspect or question is to do with Kenyan-owned businesses affected by election-related violence. Mr. Speaker, I wish to respond as follows. The preliminary assessment by the Kenya High Commission and field officers indicate that no significant Kenyan-owned businesses reported incidents of damage, looting, or temporary closure during the election period. The mission has only noted an incident at the Namanga one-stop border post where a tear gas canister thrown by a Tanzanian security forces landed on the Kenyan side and struck the KRA cargo scanner area. The incident was reported through established channels and additional security support was deployed from Kajiado. There was no major impact and no further related incident. The fourth aspect of the honorable member's question was on measures being taken to locate Kenyans who were reported missing after the elections. I wish to respond as follows. There were no reported cases of missing Kenyan nationals following the unrest associated with the general elections in the United Republic of Tanzania. However, the mission received reports of several Kenyans who had been arrested and detained in various locations across Tanzania. In response, the Kenya High Commission dispatched a team of officers to the respective police stations and immigration officers to verify the arrests, provide consular assistance, and engage local authorities. Following the intervention by the government of Kenya through the High Commission, all but 2 of the detained Kenyans have since been released. The remaining 2 individuals are Mr. Samuel Kagila and Stephen Dungu Kimani, who are currently held at Arusha Central Police Station. The mission remains actively engaged with Tanzanian authorities, and efforts are ongoing to secure their release. And the ministry has also sought assurances that the 2 Kenyans will be accorded full due process, including access to legal representation and timely production before a competent court. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Korere, umetosheka?
Mheshimiwa Spika, sio haswa sijatosheka kamili, manake taarifa tunazozipata nje ni kwamba kuna baadhi ya Wakenya ambayo hawajui walipo wapendwa wao. Pia kando na hiyo, Mheshimiwa Spika, tunajua kwamba taifa ya Kenya na muungano na Jamhuri ya Muungano ya Tanzania tuko na mengi tu ambayo yanatushikanisha. Mbali na binadamu, kuna viumbe vingine vya Kenya ambavyo vinapatikana Tanzania. Kwa hivyo ni vyema wizara yetu husika iweze kuwajibika, na namshukuru waziri manake ameonyesha kwamba wizara imewajibika, lakini waendelee kuwajibika zaidi ili tujue walipo Wakenya wote ambayo mpaka sasa wapendwa hao hawajui walipo, na pia ule uhusiano na undugu ulio baina ya nchi hizi mbili iendelee kukuwepo hata baada ya uchaguzi ya nchi yoyote ile.
Thank you. Tandaza? Honorable Tandaza?
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Langu litakuwa fupi kwamba tunajua kwamba Zanzibari ama Unguja ni kati ya Jamhuri ya Tanzania. Lakini tunashangaa kwamba wakati wa Zanzibari wanapokuja Kenya tunawapatia taratibu za kawaida kama ndugu zetu, lakini Mkenya anapoenda Zanzibar ni kwamba anahitajika kulipa takriban dola 44 kama bima, na haijalishi aidha mtu anaenda kwa siku moja ama siku mbili. Mimi nakotoka Tanzania ni jirani, Zanzibar ni jirani, na tuna familia kule. Kwa nini wao watutoze bima ya afya dola 44 ili hali wao wakija hawatozi chochote? Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
You cannot, please, yes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, my question to the Cabinet Secretary. Honorable Speaker, as you're aware, we had 2 Kenyans who were lost. More notably, the gentleman called Nicholas Oyo, who is actually my constituent in Uganda. And this was just as a result of politics within on the Ugandan side, although that issue was resolved before I brought my statement. Honorable Speaker, we have quite a number of Kenyans who suffer in Uganda and in Tanzania for various other reasons, including even a question tied to the Honorable Korere, where we have people conducting business in those countries and they get harassed as well. Some even being suspected of getting involved in politics, and yet they're actually conducting business. Yet, in the reverse, Honorable Speaker, here in Nairobi, in fact in my constituency, we have so many Tanzanians, undocumented Tanzanians, right here in Nairobi conducting business. And our government does nothing. We just allow them to conduct business. So, Honorable Speaker, is it time perhaps that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs does a documentation of all the Tanzanians, all the Ugandans who are actually conducting business in Kenya, and this information be made public, that it can be shared with our neighbors so that they are aware that we do have people from their countries who are conducting business in Kenya, and they know what is at stake when they harass our citizens who are conducting business in those countries. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Professor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to raise a
Professor
question.
Jaldeza.
Yes. I want to raise a question on the Kenyans who have been said to be held up in Russia being taken to the war front side of Ukraine. There are 5 Kenyans whom we have the names, and the names that I have is Edwin Wafula, Awad Mtindi, Isa Alake, Peter Muredi, and Patrick Obonyo. Whether the minister is aware of their situation and the way any means they have taken to repatriate them back to the country safely.
Kwame. Honorable Okwame.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, Mr. Speaker, permit me to say that a Kenyan is a Kenyan. It doesn't matter whether he is within the country or outside the country. If a Kenyan is outside the country, and in particular just next door like Tanzania, Uganda, and something happens to him, like the cases we are referring to, for sure, our government must show a serious concern so that both Kenyans inside and outside can know they are Kenyans, and our government, together with other Kenyans, care and are concerned about them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hope the Prime Cabinet Secretary is getting us and is going to take some action.
You can answer those.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will respond to the issues raised.
Honorable Correa just made a complimentary statement. You don't have to answer to that.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
You just complimented what he said. So, chukua microphone.
Speaker, I said there are Kenyans who are still missing, and according to the Cabinet Secretary, he says that there are no reports of Kenyan missing. But if from what we know, there are people who are complaining that more Kenyans are not known where their whereabouts are not known. So they should know where those Kenyans are and try to reach out to their families so that they can get full information on the people who are claiming their loved ones are missing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said, I did indicate in my statement that there is Mr. Ogutu who passed away, and that is indicated, and we are trying to trace the remains. I also indicated that there were other Kenyans who had been held in the police stations, and they have since been released. And I said there are 2 left, and these are the ones that we have records of. And I would want to appeal to the honorable member and to everybody listening that indeed, if there are any other potential Kenyans who are missing, the Kenyan mission in Dar es Salaam is ready to receive the details, and equally here in Nairobi, at the ministry headquarters, we can receive the details so that we can pursue and see if they are in danger or if there's any other reason. So we are open to following up on that. On the issue of Zanzibar and the claim of $42 for medical cover, this is something that I can only say that the government of Kenya has also been reflecting on, because we have seen situations where, in the situation of Kenya, people can cross over to seek medical help in our hospitals, and they have not been charged any insurance cover. So this is an issue that is with Tanzania. The government of Kenya is also debating it internally to see whether there is need to provide some measure of insurance cover for some of the visitors that come into Kenya, so that in case they fall sick, then the burden does not squarely fall on the Kenyan taxpayer alone, but it is also covered in the context of insurance. But that is something that I just wanted to highlight. We have noted, and we hope we can balance it out going forward. On the issue of the Kenyans who are in Uganda, Nicholas Oyo and Njagi, at this point in time, Honorable Mwenje, or Mr. Speaker, we can say that they are happy, they are at home, they are safe back in their country, and the government of Kenya engaged fully with the government of Uganda to secure their release. One of the things that we also know is that a lot of Kenyans, as they move, they do not necessarily register or inform the Kenyan embassy in the country they are going to. So some of these issues we stumble upon only when there's a moment of distress. So we also encourage Kenyans who are traveling to also indicate and notify our respective embassies where we have a mission, that they are indeed in that country. Should there be need for any SOS, then the government of Kenya can intervene. The other point, let me finish before.
Yes, Angela, what's your point of order? Why can't you have a question or?
No, it's a point of order, Mr. Speaker. Prime Cabinet Secretary is misleading the House because some of us live at the border, right at the lake, and people move in and move out even when they are going for fishing. They will not go to islands or to fish, then they move up to Kampala where the embassy is to report. They just move in as Kenya and they move out. So it's in order to mislead that we need to be reporting in the Kampala office while we have only gone to fish.
Go on and answer the question.
Well,
let him respond to the issues raised earlier.
Yeah.
And those of you who have issues, I know Undo, I'm sure you are tied to Angela with the lake and fish.
Yes.
Let him finish answering the earlier questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to say that in certain instances, some of these Kenyans who go don't even inform some of their own family members when they're leaving. So we can only encourage that communication is important when this movement between the various countries is being done. However, with regard to the East African community, we are a regional bloc, and we allow for free movement across the border. And as I did indicate, when I say that it is good to notify, there would be special circumstances when you notify. But really, when you're doing your own business, normal trade, I do agree with the Honorable Anjala, it may not necessarily call for notification in that sense. But this is in the sense that in the event somebody is going to overstay in a country, and maybe there could be some issues that require intervention. Yes. The other thing that, Mr. Speaker, I would want to pick up is the issue of Russia. I just want to point out that, again, we are pursuing, working both with the Russian government. Our ambassador in Moscow, Mathuki, is seized with this matter. And we are trying to ensure that Kenyans who are going there are not misled to enter into a war that they do not understand and put themselves in the line of danger. We have also engaged, in fact, President Ruto has even engaged with Zelensky for some of the Kenyans who were arrested or caught in this particular act of conflict and now are prisoners of war. So the government of Kenya is in negotiations to try and secure the release of some of these Kenyans who went to these front lines. We have since also advised that Kenyans should be very careful so that they don't fall into the trap of being lured into a situation which can be dangerous for them. Mr. Speaker, I think in terms of just re-emphasizing that it is the responsibility of the government of Kenya, and it has set up the State Department for Diaspora so that it can become more effective in assisting Kenyans that are living away from home. There was no State Department of Diaspora before. This is the first time, this is the first government that has set it up, and I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, that the State Department is working day and night. They have a 24-hour call center to track and deal with any distress cases that come in from Kenyans in different parts of the country. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I just want to say that we must, all as a regional bloc within the East African community, respect and work together as members of the East African community, and we should all collectively move away from bordering on entering into xenophobia, where we start having unnecessary hostility against citizens of other friendly countries. It's all our duty, and it's also the duty of the East African Community member states to make sure that we do not fall into a xenophobic situation.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. First of all, allow me also to continue the debate initiated by my neighbor. Honorable Speaker.
This is question time, it's not debate time.
Fine, just to present the same question, yes, that to the Cabinet Secretary, Prime Cabinet Secretary, on the issue of families that strayed across the borders. What efforts is the government doing to ensure that other countries, friendly countries, neighboring countries, accord them the same treatment that we do when they cross over to this part of the country? Secondly, Prime Cabinet Secretary, through you, Speaker, there has been a lot of cases where foreigners seeking refugees in Kenya, running away from persecution or prosecution from their country, are abducted in this country and taken back to their country for prosecution without following proper process of extradition. What efforts, what measures is the government doing to stop that unfriendly and unacceptable behavior? Thank you.
Yes, Russell.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. PCS, the issue of customs union, common market, and also the East African Charter. A Kenyan who moves to Uganda, Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, I believe he or she feels that they are still within Kenya because those charters bind all the East Africans. When we see some of the responses you are giving on the media in recent days, it is as if we are operating on different laws. Then if that is the case, then it simply means that the East African Charter that binds all of us is not working. Are we going to sign drafts of MOUs so that Kenyan citizens who are doing business or the expatriates in those countries or their students, their rights are safeguarded by new laws? Because from what I see, then we are operating on very different systems that Kenyans in those countries are not safe. Maybe your response on that. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Simply put, Prime Cabinet Secretary is asking what happened to the protocol on free movement of people, goods, and services in the East African community. Is that right? Yes. Junet?
Mr. Speaker, I wanted to ask a supplementary question on the issue of the recruitment that is going on in Russia, the fight between Russia and Ukraine. As the Prime Cabinet Secretary said, Mr. Speaker, they have made efforts to reach out to Russia and Ukraine on the issue. But what I wanted to ask is, it looks like there are criminal enterprises here within the country who are luring those people to go to Russia and fight in that war between Russia and Ukraine. Is there any effort the government has made to bust those criminal enterprises that are luring those men and women who want to go to that war? And my second question, Mr. Speaker, is supplementary, is on the issue of the policy of the foreign ministry. For example, on the Middle East, what's happening in the Middle East? This looks like we are in a state of confusion. Nobody knows what is the position of the government of Kenya on what is going on in the Middle East. So can the Prime Cabinet Secretary enlighten us on what could be the position of the government of Kenya on what is going on in the Middle East or part of the world?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to ask a supplementary question to the Cabinet Secretary of Foreign Affairs regarding what Junet has just alluded on the policy of the government. We have seen of recently claims by an airline carrying some Palestinians, stopping over Nairobi and later taking them to South Africa. Mr. Speaker, it's very saddening when we become a country of conduit of human trafficking, because it does not augur very well when we have already ratified treaties to protect human trafficking. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, it is the issue between our citizens here and our neighbors, Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. Mr. Speaker, it's the high time we understand from the Cabinet Secretary, what are they doing to make sure that we continue enjoying the tranquility of the East African Treaty of Free Movement? Mr. Speaker, we can even table evidence of Kenyans who have been asked to produce documents to be in Tanzania or in Uganda. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, I think there is a serious laxity in this ministry when Kenyans are held in different territories over the country. In my constituency, Mr. Speaker, we have had cases of children or young people going to seek jobs in Middle East, and by bad luck or whatever happens, they pass there. To repatriate that body back to Kenya, it's taking close even to 6 months, Mr. Speaker. So as a ministry, what are you doing to protect Kenyans when they are abroad? That is a fundamental question the Cabinet Secretary should tell us as members of Parliament. And last but not least, you need to be very clear.
Order. You are joyriding on somebody else's question and you're asking 4 questions.
Mr. Speaker.
Actually, you are making a speech.
No. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the last question. I've just heard the Prime Cabinet Secretary talk about the two Kenyans who were held in Uganda, and he said that the government were fully engaged. And we saw those Kenyans saying that their release came when the former president of this country, Uhuru Kenyatta, intervened. It is a shame. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. If Kenya is engaged, it's engaged. Even you can engage. Yes. Yes, Junet.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether you heard what the member said lastly, that the former president engaged the Ugandan government to release Kenyans from there. As who, Mr. Speaker? An ordinary citizen who was retired, Mr. Speaker, who was just doing his farming in Gatundu, Mr. Speaker. And lastly, this is the bad manners. We need to train them. This is the bad manners of united opposition in Kenya. They just give a speech in Parliament instead of asking a question, Mr. Speaker.
Can you, let's have the very last, Wanjala. There is another question from Naisula. Let the Prime Cabinet finish this.
No, I was on a point of
Who is that shouting? Shimba. After Wanjala, I'll give you a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Lake Victoria is a shared resource. And Mr. Speaker, all the waters in Lake Victoria are gotten from Kenya. because all the rivers that flows into Lake Victoria are from Kenya, except Kagera, the only one that is coming from Tanzania. Mr. Speaker.
Kagera doesn't come from Tanzania, it comes from Rwanda.
Yes, but it goes through Tanzania, then it comes to Uganda, DRC. Yeah. So, Mr. Speaker, and all fish is bred in Kenya, because Kenya is where we have the biggest swamps, where fish are bred. But, Mr. Speaker, when we go to the lake to fish, the Ugandans and Tanzanians harass Kenyans, extort Kenyans, beat Kenyans, jail Kenyans, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is silent. Mr. Speaker, what action is the minister going to take to negotiate with these countries? Because Lake Victoria is a shared resource for all of us, and we contribute a lot to Lake Victoria by providing fish and the waters. And Mr. Speaker, could also the minister activate communication department in his office, so that when there is a problem in Kenya, a Kenyan is caught in another country, like what happened to the Kenyans who are caught in Uganda, so that Kenyans are updated on what is happening, than them keeping quiet. We know they are busy, but they should have communication department to appraise Kenyans all the time, the way they were doing during COVID, Mr. Speaker.
Can you respond to those, and then we'll go to the next question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, let me take up the issue of the common market charter and the protocols. These protocols do exist, and they are in force. Sometimes they may not be adhered to properly, but they are in force, and that is why we have regular conversations within the context of the East African community to also take stock and improve on how the East African community can run and how the protocols can be fully adhered to. However, Mr. Speaker, I think it's important for the Kenyans to distinguish between the common market protocols and constitutions of the various countries. These are 8 sovereign states who are members of the East African community. And they have constitutions. And the provisions of each nation's constitution applies to that country. So it is important that Kenyans, and for everybody to appreciate that as we look at what is within the common market framework and the protocols, and we monitor their breaches and correct them, we would urge people to respect the sovereignty of the states. It's always very important as we go forward. The issue of extradition, if the government of Kenya is going to extradite, there's a process that would be followed. And I want to assure the Kenyans, that the House, that we have not had recently many or massive cases of extradition. If there was a record, we would be able to share that with you. So unless there's a very specific case that one would want to bring up, then we would talk about that. The most recent case that I can give you is that within the context of dealing with some of the illegal processes of recruiting and suspecting Kenyans to the Russian front, the government of Kenya did extradite somebody of Russian descent who was involved in what was illegal in our view. And not too long ago, even in Athi River, the authorities have busted a ring which had 21 Kenyans who had been locked up in a place, and they were being prepared to be taken to the front line. The authorities and the security agencies were able to intercept this potential danger of 21 Kenyans going to the front line. So we are working closely with all agencies to ensure that this menace is dealt with. Mr. Speaker, there is the issue that came up of what is our policy on the Middle East. I just want to say that this House did pass sessional paper number 1 of 2025 on foreign policy. And one of the things that came out very clearly in that sessional paper is that Kenya stands for a two-state solution on the matter of Palestine. And this House endorsed that position, and it was in that sessional paper. So from that perspective, that is the position of Kenya, and Parliament did endorse that position. So we have not negated that position whatsoever. The other thing that I want to highlight is something to do with the civil aviation, and I would recommend, Mr. Speaker, that a special question can be developed around the Kenya civil aviation issue about the plane that had passengers that were then moved to another country. The civil aviation of Kenya had proper record, proper sight of that aircraft, and I want to reassure that Kenya does not get involved in any human trafficking. I think there are misleading reports that need to be corrected, and a proper question focusing on that would enable the relevant ministry to respond specifically to it. Mr. Speaker, I want to also point out that the issue of how we exploit our maritime resources and the fishing issues, I can only urge that the government of Kenya has established a department and a ministry that focuses on this area. And from time to time, they will be seized, and I think we have a competent minister there in the name of Joho, who will focus on, in detail, on what they are doing to ensure that we have fair and unfettered exploitation of our maritime resources. Mr. Speaker, I think on the quick supplementary questions, I believe I have touched on all of them.
Shimba, Karole, I want to give you, Shimba will be the last one. I want to go to the next question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Shimba.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Cabinet Secretary replied to a question by Honorable Tandaza, and this is in regards to the taxes being levied by Tanzania. I believe, Mr. Speaker, we are all guided by the East African Community Common Charter.
Ask a question.
The question is, why is one country behaving differently from the other countries in the arrangement of the East African Community, Mr. Speaker?
To be fair to the PCS, he answered that question, Shimba.
Yeah, but of course, Mr. Speaker.
So ask him as a question for probably further clarification, because what you're asking, he answered.
But he didn't actually answer properly, because we are all...
Order, Shimba.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Tandaza who asked the question is not complaining. Why are you wailing louder than the bereaved?
But Mr. Speaker, we are guided by the East African Community rules and portfolios.
So ask him the question.
Why is one country allowed to go outside the agreed protocols, of course, of the other countries? The second one, Mr. Speaker, is about this help desk. How active is this help desk? Because right now I've received complaints about workers who are in Saudi Arabia, and they were demanding for their rights, and they have been incarcerated for almost 2 weeks now, Mr. Speaker. How active is this desk? Are the members of the public aware about this desk internally and even perhaps externally? And finally, if, Mr. Speaker, you may allow.
You are a joyrider. One question.
Yeah, if you may allow, that's what I'm saying, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, finish up.
I was in Ethiopia recently, Mr. Speaker. I found in that airport almost all the airplanes belong to Ethiopian Airlines. Today in Kenya, Mombasa has only 4 flights in a day, Mr. Speaker. Is the Ministry of Transport really working? But of course, I'm asking about, because he's the Chief Cabinet Secretary, he's also aware about the predicament that we are suffering as users of the airspace. Mr. Speaker, I want you to indulge the Prime Cabinet Secretary at least to assist us in this predicament we have. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Karoli Wangela, you're out of order.
Because
Order.
PCS did not answer my question.
He did.
He avoided.
Karoli,
Honorable Wanjala, don't beat me up.
Karoli, you should help Wangela to listen.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Could the Prime Cabinet Secretary inform the House what steps the government has taken to address the recent claims by Uganda that they want to take the Indian Ocean, overrun Kenya and take the Indian Ocean, given their history of military adventurism in South Sudan, in DRC, in Rwanda, in Somalia, and in Burundi, and other parts of the region? And could he also assure the members of parliament of their safety, since in about 2 weeks we will be in Uganda for the interparliamentary sports? Thank you.
Mudavadi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me start with the Honorable Karoli. I just want to assure him that they'll be safe when they go to Uganda for the interparliamentary sports.
There is no evidence to the contrary. I think Karoli is just engaged in comic relief.
Correct. And then I just want, on the issue of the Indian Ocean, I just want to say that there are conventions and international obligations which deal with landlocked countries.
And the African Union Constitutive Act.
And the African Union Constitutive Act is one of such instruments. So I want to assure you that we are not going to go to war. And we as a country have always, since time immemorial, provided safe passage and free passage for goods from landlocked countries. And we are not about to change that because it's our international obligation, but also it's how we grow the ports in our country. The second issue I just wanted to touch on is the issue around aviation travel in the country. I didn't quite get...
Shimba asked 3 questions about the levy to Zanzibar by Tandaza, about the lack of adequate aerial services to Mombasa, and the help desk at your ministry for Kenyans in distress, internally and externally.
Now, on the issue of transport and air, this is a private sector-driven sector, and the demand for services, especially if it is between Kenya, internally, intra-Kenya, internally, where you are moving from one port to the other, I think it's driven by the demand and commercial viability. And this is left for the private sector to determine. Now, in terms of the international connections with other countries, this also calls for further investment, and we are talking about how Kenya Airways can be supported further so that it can take up a bigger market share in the context of regional and international flights, and I know important decisions are about to be made on how the Kenya Airways can be supported, and I think the minister responsible for transport will soon be speaking to this particular issue. The help desk Mr. Speaker, has been there now for quite some time, and it is serving a lot of Kenyans. I have personally visited the 24-hour emergency center of the State Department of Diaspora, and I can confirm it is functioning, it is active, and there are very many young Kenyans who are doing a good job in assisting Kenyans and who are in distress and families that are in distress. I would want to invite the honorable member at an appropriate time when he has some free time on his hands to visit this center so that he can get a first-hand feel of what it is doing. On the issue of the tax, you called it tax, but the honorable member Tandaza talked of insurance cover. We are very clear that if there are any breaches, we have mechanisms of negotiating within the framework of the East African community, where a country has introduced something that is raising concerns with member states for it to be addressed. And it's within that framework that we shall address issues like the ones we raised. But I did indicate that Kenya also has been thinking about how to support its health infrastructure, because so many visitors do come, and then unfortunately some of them may fall sick, and it behoves on us to treat them as a nation. But these are infrastructure funded by the Kenyan taxpayer. So what happens when the others, this is why you sometimes have travel insurance, this is why you sometimes have health insurance, and Zanzibar is trying to cover their health component in that by imposing a levy. But these are issues that are being discussed within the framework of the East African community. Mr. Speaker, I believe some of the issues that are coming through are also in the context of the next question.
Question by private notice, Naisula Lesuda.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise to ask the following questions to the Prime Cabinet Secretary. Could the Prime Cabinet Secretary clarify whether any senior government officials or their family members directly or indirectly own, control, or benefit from recruitment, training, or insurance companies involved in deploying Kenyan workers to the Gulf? Provide the full terms of the current bilateral labor agreements with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, including negotiated wages, complaint handling mechanisms, emergency response obligations, and repatriation terms for Kenyan workers. Explain the current capacity of the Kenyan Embassy in Riyadh and the consulate in Jeddah to respond to reports of abuse and to protect Kenyan workers in distress, including staffing, funding, safe house availability, and case resolution mechanisms. Explain the criteria and specific oversight mechanisms applied in vetting agencies before they are granted recruitment licenses, and further explain the number of recruitment agency licenses that have been revoked in the last 5 years. Provide the number of workers that have been repatriated due to abuse, medical emergencies, or labor violations, and the specific legal, psychosocial, or financial support that has been provided. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, could the Prime Cabinet Secretary explain why the minimum wages of Kenyan domestic workers in the Gulf countries has not been renegotiated in line with regional benchmarks such as the Philippines and Sri Lanka? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Cabinet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to respond as follows. First, Kenyans migrating abroad must have travel insurance cover, and I wish to state that no single insurance company has a monopoly covering Kenyans seeking jobs in the Gulf or any other country. individuals and Kenyan private recruitment agencies are at liberty to choose their preferred insurance companies. As to whether there is details of family members directly involved or own or control, Mr. Speaker, I would want to say that we have a list of 594 recruitment agencies, and it would take quite a bit of time to go through that detail. But also to point out that as we speak, this Parliament appropriately passed the Conflict of Interest Bill, and if through the process anybody is found to be in conflict with what their role is, then appropriate action would be taken. The second aspect is, what are the terms of the current bilateral labor agreements with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, including negotiated wages and complaint handling mechanisms, emergency responses and obligations? I wish to respond as follows. Kenya is at an advanced stage of negotiating with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for a new comprehensive agreement that will cover skilled and semi-skilled workers with significantly improved wages and conditions. Just this week, we have received official communication on enhanced wage agreements for Kenyans employed in the Kingdom of Arabia. The third aspect of the questions was to explain the current capacity of the Kenyan Embassy in Riyadh and the Consulate in Jeddah to respond to the reports of abuse and how they protect Kenyans workers in distress. Mr. Speaker, the number of Kenyans living and working in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has increased exponentially, now estimated at 350,000. To enhance consular services, we recently opened a consulate in Jeddah to augment the mission in Riyadh. We will also be seeking more budgetary support to expand the capacity of our mission to serve Kenyans better. The government will be seeking funding for the establishment of a safe house for Kenyans in distress. The fourth aspect of the question was to explain the criteria and oversight mechanisms applied in vetting agencies before they are granted recruitment licenses, and further explain the number of recruitment agencies that have had their licenses revoked in the last 5 years. Mr. Speaker, a multi-agency committee comprising of the Department of Labor, Interior, Foreign Affairs, the Attorney General, the National Police, National Intelligence Service, and Director Criminal Investigations, DCI, was set up. This committee vets all applications by recruitment agencies in line with Section 54A to 60 of the Labor Institutions Act of 2007 and the Private Employment Agencies Regulations of 2016. The criteria includes financial capability of a capital base of Kenya shillings 5 million, office space and facilities, educational qualifications of the directors and managers, degree for the manager and Form 4 certificate for directors. Others are individuals with others are to make sure that the individuals have no criminal record. They must at least be one Kenyan director. Foreigners must be in possession of a work permit. Mr. Speaker, there are currently 594 recruitment agencies with valid licenses. The government has to date deregistered over 600 other agencies on various grounds of malpractice. The fifth aspect of the question was to provide the number of workers that have been repatriated due to abuse and other challenges. Mr. Speaker, the number of distress cases handled from the Middle East from 2023 to date are 3,452. Finally, the member wanted us to explain why the minimum wages of Kenyan domestic workers in the Gulf countries has not been renegotiated in line with regional benchmarks such as the Philippines and Sri Lanka. The bilateral labor agreement for domestic workers was signed in 2018 and it came into operation in 2019. In addition, a meeting held in February 2019 between the representatives of the Saudi manpower companies and Kenyan recruitment agencies agreed on a minimum salary of 850 Saudi riyals, that is about 30,000 Kenya shillings. However, from 1st October 2025, Saudi Arabia officially launched phase 3 of its wage protection system for domestic workers. Under this phase, all employers who hire 2 or more domestic workers are now required to transfer salaries through official digital channels via the MUSAND platform. This step reflects the Kingdom's strong commitment to safeguarding workers' rights and ensuring timely, transparent, and secure salary payments. By January 2026, the system will become mandatory for all domestic workers in Saudi Arabia, regardless of the number of employees. The WPS system for domestic workers is the first system of its kind globally to cover this category of workers. And this represents a landmark reform from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia so that it strengthens protection, promotes fair treatment, and enhances trust between employers, workers, and recruitment officers. This initiative will support our shared goals of ensuring the dignity, security, and welfare of domestic workers while further reinforcing our collaboration. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, let me just reaffirm that our citizens are not merely migrating for work. They are being actively recruited worldwide because of their skills, resilience, and work ethic. The government celebrates this global recognition and will spare no effort in building robust systems, including bilateral agreements, real-time embassy interventions, verified recruitment, and enforceable protections, so that every Kenyan who steps out to earn abroad does so with the full backing and shield of the government.
Naisula.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, Prime Cabinet Secretary, for your response. I just have 2 follow-up questions. Is it a coincidence that Saudi Arabia is where we get all, or Middle East, is where we get most of the complaints about Kenyans being mistreated there, and not other parts of the country? Because I'm sure there are other Kenyans who are going to work in other parts of the world, Mr. Speaker. I would also like to say that it is important that we get the full terms of the current bilateral labor agreement, because that is what I asked for. Even if you're working on the new one, it is important that we get to see it, because it will put, and I think, Mr. Speaker, just a statement that I would like to make, once these things are settled once and for all, it will avoid a lot of misinformation out there, Mr. Speaker. And so it is important for the Prime Cabinet Secretary to just come outrightly on some of these matters so that it can put to rest once and for all, because I'm sure this is not the first time that we've had this question in this House.
Shakil first. Kisumu Town East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm also the chairman of APNAC, the African Parliamentarians Against Corruption, and in the next meetings we are talking about the problems of migrant workers as one of these issues. The question that I have, I'd like a confirmation from the Chief, from Honorable Mudavadi, whether, for the Foreign Minister, whether, in his knowledge, has these, the Gulf countries and Saudi Arabia now banished that system that they used to sell. I don't know what it was called. They used to sell their workers because these workers were under contract, and then they would literally sell them like a slave trade. And they were not allowed to do anything else, and they had no say in the matter. I was told those regulations were being revised. Can you confirm to me whether he's aware that they have now been changed, and actually that that very defective and horrendous system has now been abolished? Thank you.
Tandaza.
Asante, Mheshimiwa Spika. Swali langu katika wale ambao umeorodhesha 594, nina hakika kuna Zawadi Abroad na kuna kampuni nyingine inaitwa Think North. Hawa walikuwa Kwale, kwangu Matuga, wakaweza kusajili vijana 61 miezi 4 iliyopita. Kisha wizara kupitia zile special funds za maalum za Uwezo Fund wakapeana pesa, wao wakachukua na pasipoti zao, miezi 4 imeisha na mpaka sasa hawajapata habari zozote. Mheshimiwa Spika, vijana hawa 61 jana walikuwa ofisini wakipanga kuandamana leo kuitisha pasipoti zao, kwa sababu kwa kipindi cha miezi 4 sasa hawawezi kusafiri na hawajui kunaendelea nini. Nikawaahidi kwamba najua leo waziri atafika na pengine wataweza kupata afueni, na ndio maana alizungumza Kiswahili kwa sababu na imani wananisikiliza. Kampuni hizi mbili, kuna hatua gani ambazo wizara itaweza kuwachukulia za dharura ili waregeshe pesa pamoja na pasipoti, kwa sababu ni kama waliwatapeli hawa vijana? Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Oundo.
Speaker, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I just want to request the Prime Cabinet Secretary to clarify some two damaging articles that appeared in the New York Times in the course of this week. One reads, New York Times reveals Kenyans officials profiting from workers' abuse in Saudi Arabia, and they named the insurance companies and have got the details are extensive. Allow me not to quote because I'm not an author of the article. Secondly, there's also a similar article that is, Kenya's key export used to be coffee, now it's cheap labor. Very demeaning statements. I just want to, the Prime Cabinet Secretary and be also the Minister of Foreign Affairs to clarify the veracity or the intensity or if there's any factual details about these two statements. Thank you.
Waziri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me start with the issues raised by Honorable Oundo. First of all, I want to state that as a government, we take great exception to the articles that were purveyed by the New York Times, and of course repeated or just reproduced by one of the local dailies. We want to state clearly that Kenya is a responsible member of the international community, and we do not engage in any human trafficking, neither does the president of this country or his government engage in any slave trading. It is indeed unfortunate and irresponsible that those are the kind of communication that we see. It is unfortunate that that kind of sensationalism was brought out. And I think we should all treat that with the condemnation that it deserves. And clearly there are some defamatory issues that are raised in these articles. And that will be a matter for a different aspect. Now, let me come to the specific issues that I raised. First of all, the data we have is so clear, and labor, as they say, coffee and labor, comparing to coffee and labor, I think that is mischievous, because the earnings of coffee, tea, and others are known, the statistics are there, and the earnings are very high and they are growing. So for the New York Times to actually stoop so low and purvey a falsehood that migrant workers on their own is not factual, and it's wrong. The second thing that I would want to point out now is that the issue that's raised by the Honorable Shakil, as part of the reforms within the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, is that they have moved away from the kafala system. I think that's what you are looking for. And as we talk about improving the conditions and negotiating, and our teams are negotiating, we are sure that in the course of next year, as we conclude the negotiation of these bilateral agreements, the earnings of Kenyan migrant workers are going to be more in tandem and at par with other countries that had entered this specific area earlier. The other thing that I would want to point out, Mr. Speaker, is that Kenyan migrant workers are not the only migrant workers in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. When you talk of countries like Sri Lanka, Philippines, India, Pakistan, you have even more migrant workers in those countries. Some of them have them in their millions. So Kenya is a very small component when compared to some of these countries. And therefore, the perpetuation of a narrative that it's only Kenya that is in distress, I think is not the case. But we focus on Kenyans, and we are going to work to improve the arrangements for Kenyans through bilateral agreements, not just in Saudi Arabia, but in all Gulf countries and even in other countries. The youth that were from Matuga, I'll request that we get a little more detail from the Honorable Member so that these two companies can be put on immediate spotlight by the Ministry and the Department of Diaspora Affairs, and if there are any criminal activities, also by the agencies that deal with the criminal aspects, because we want clean and fair play for young Kenyans who are seeking opportunities abroad. Mr. Speaker, as to the labor agreement, I have no problem, Mr. Speaker, through your office. We can avail copies of the bilateral labor agreement so that they can...
You can forward to my office. It will be circulated to the members.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll end there, honorable members, so that we go to the next business. Prime Cabinet Secretary, I think our engagement with you can end here. You are released to go back to your office, carry on with other duties. And please convey to your cabinet colleagues to take this house seriously. And we will sanction those who don't honor our invitations.
So instructed, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Order number 8, motion, consideration of comprehensive economic partnership agreement between the Republic of Kenya and the United Arab Emirates. Question on proposed amendment to be put.
Order members on their feet.